Hello, this is Mike Burkhans. From the beginning of this campaign, I've been talking about how we ran our first deficit last year and how we're projecting significant deficits for the future. And even though these weren't my documents that said this, these were the cities. From the start, the mayor, Marty, Alec, James have all been saying what Mike Burkhans has said isn't true. There's no deficits. Everything's perfect. And either he doesn't understand or he's making some things up. Now, this is obviously extremely frustrating to me since the data I'm citing comes from the auditors, the Ohio auditors recently released audit, and the finance director's own projections. So about 10 days after the audit came out and the city had been denying all these things, the Plain Dealer came out with the following article. Here you go. As you can see from the article, the finance director admits that last year there was nearly $1 million deficit in government funds, and they are projecting larger deficits in years to come. Now, when this article came out, they had to change their tune. And I know that Marty and James were telling people, well, yeah, technically that might look like a deficit, but it isn't because it was caused by this unexpected timing of $1 million tax credit we had to pay to Eaton. If they would have taken 5 minutes and called the finance director and asked about this is what he would have told them. This May, I think it was May, there was an unexpected $1 million payment to Eaton. And it should have hit last November, but it didn't for some reason. Eaton got an extension with Rita and instead hit in May. Now, if they understood this, they would have realized it should have hit last November, which means the $922,000 deficit last year should have been $1.9 million. Not what they're telling people is it would have canceled out the deficit. It just shows that either they're misleading people, which I don't think they are intentionally, or they just didn't take the 5 minutes to try to understand this. That's pretty problematic in itself. Now, in the editorial board interview, when it came to the mayor's turn to address the deficits, like Marty, he denied they existed or they only existed because of the timing of this tax credit. But he went on to say two other things. The first one was saying there's no way we could run a deficit and still have a AAA bond rating. He obviously forgets we had a AAA bond rating in 2008, 9, and 10 when our deficits caused us to have to tell residents we needed a tax increase. The other thing he said was the Ohio Revised Code makes it illegal for a city to run a deficit. I don't know if that's true or not. It might be, but even if it does, it obviously doesn't have any teeth, because if you look at this article I pulled up from 2010, residents are being told that the looming $2.2 million general fund shortfall for that year is causing some real problems. And without changes, the city projects it will burn through $31 million in cash reserves by 2014. Many people just think we have this big pot of money because we're a nice city, but it was only a few years ago where the way we spent money put us in this position where the services we all value are in jeopardy unless we raise taxes. Anyhow, I just want to set up one more thing. There's one more thing to make a point because the finance director has told our council specifically about these issues. And it just seems like they don't want to hear it or they hear it for a second and forget about it on purpose. And this was in the committee meeting on June 5th where the mayor and the finance director were telling council that he didn't want to offer this program to help elderly and disabled residents take their trash out because it would cost an extra $200,000 and that we just didn't have enough money. James asked this question, are we going to spend more than we bring in this year? So I'll just push play so you can see for yourself.
So I'm concerned about any kind of extra budget stuff at this point. Yeah.
When you say the income tax is 8.5% off, does that mean we're on track this fiscal year to spend more than we're going to bring in if you fall 8.5 short?
Yes.
I don't know. The finance director sounded pretty clear. He was directly asked, are we on pace to spend more than we bring in? And he said yes. And there's no better example of how the way we spend money can really impact the services we provide than this. I mean, this whole discussion was because the mayor and finance director were telling council they are against offering this program to help elderly and disabled residents take their trash to the curb because it will cost an extra $200,000 a year and we don't have the money. Now, everybody on council is in this room. Everyone heard this. But 2 weeks later, when I asked if anybody was concerned about the deficit we ran last year, the first one since 2010, or the projected deficits, they all turned around and said, Mike Burkhans doesn't know what he's talking about. There are no deficits. We're in awesome shape. We've got a AAA bond rating. But they were all in the room. They all heard this. I think it's important. I think it's an important issue. Everybody thinks Beechwood has this endless pot of money because it's a nice city, and it is. But people have to remember it was only a few years ago in 2010 where residents were told, hey, the deficits we're running are very problematic, and if we don't raise taxes, or we're going to have to cut services, or else we are going to burn through the $31 million in reserves within 4 years. That can happen again. We're definitely on the path of that happening if nobody will sit here and acknowledge the reality of our financial situation. Anyhow, The next video will be about our cash balance today compared to what it was even 20 months ago and the projected deficits. And just to point out that we don't have enough money to do almost half the things in the master plan that almost everybody on city council claims is like the biggest accomplishment. I don't know what an accomplishment is to put together a plan where there's not funding to accomplish almost anything in the plan. But anyhow, this one's long enough. I think we're over 5 minutes. So take a day or two to digest this, and then please watch my next video. Have a good one. Bye.